When the wind brushes across the Heartland Ranch, it carries whispers of love, loss, and memories that never fade. And in season 19, episode 1, something happened that no one expected. Ty came back. Before we can understand the power of Ty's return, we need to go back to the moment when everything changed for Amy, and for all of us who have followed her journey. Ty Borden wasn't just a character in Heartland. He was Amy's partner, her anchor, her best friend. He was the reason she smiled after long days, the man who stood by her through storms and sunshine. And when he died, a part of Heartland died with him. In season 14. Ty's sudden death came like thunder on a clear day. One moment, he was recovering from surgery, and the next, he collapsed just like that. A blood clot. Something so small, but it shattered everything. Fans around the world were left in shock. Amy's face, frozen in disbelief, said more than any words could. Her pain became ours. Her silence screamed. That moment became one of the most emotional scenes in Heartland history. Amy wasn't just grieving the loss of her husband. She was grieving the future they had planned. The rides they would take together. The lessons they would teach Lindy. The way he used to look at her like she was the only person in the world. Suddenly, all of it was gone. She had to wake up every morning and pretend to be okay for her daughter. But inside, she was lost in a world where Ty no longer existed. Through the seasons that followed, Amy tried to be strong. She focused on her work with horses. She leaned on her family. She smiled when Lindy made a joke or when Jack offered his quiet wisdom. But there were always moments when she would stare off into the distance like she was looking for something she had lost. In those silences, viewers could still feel Ty. His absence was loud. His memory filled every empty space. The writers didn't rush Amy's healing. They showed her grief step by step. There were days she couldn't get out of bed, days she broke down in the barn, and days where she almost looked happy, but you could see in her eyes that the wound was still fresh. That's what made her story feel so real, because healing doesn't happen all at once. It comes in waves. And just when you think you've moved on, a memory hits you like a train. In one episode, Amy looked at an old photo of her and Ty by the barn. She didn't cry, she just stared. That quiet moment said it all. She wasn't ready to let go, and maybe she never would be. Because how do you let go of someone who gave you everything? Someone who made you believe in love, in family, in the strength of holding on. But Amy wasn't the only one grieving. Jack felt like he had lost a son. Lou tried to hold the family together while carrying her own heartbreak. Lisa, Tim, even Caleb, everyone who knew Ty felt his loss in their own way. Heartland wasn't just telling Amy's story, it was telling a story about all of us. About how we carry on after losing someone who meant the world. And then came the dreams. The little moments where Amy would close her eyes and see Ty again. Maybe it was just a memory. Maybe it was something more. But each time, it was clear he wasn't really gone. Not completely. Not to her. And not to us. As season 19 opens, we feel the weight of those past years. We carry every tear, every smile, every silent moment. Because when someone we love disappears, their shadow never leaves. And as the sun rises on a new chapter at Heartland, we ask the question that lives in every broken heart. It didn't feel like a scene from a TV show. It felt like a memory pulling itself out of a dream. The screen went quiet. The wind moved gently through the tall grass. And there he was, Ty Borden. Not as a flashback, not as a photograph on a shelf, but standing there live, breathing. For a split second, the world seemed to pause. You could almost hear Amy's heart skip a beat. Her eyes froze. Breath caught in her chest. Was she seeing what we were seeing? Was it real? Or was grief playing one of its cruel tricks again? In that moment, time folded in on itself. All the years of heartbreak, all the nights she cried alone, every memory. She held on to like a lifeline. They all came rushing back. And then ... there he was. Ty, the man she had loved with her entire being, standing in front of her again. Asterisk, no music played. No dramatic cue. Just silence. The kind of silence that fills the space before something sacred. Asterisk, Amy didn't speak right. Away, she couldn't. Her eyes filled with tears before her voice could form words. Her hand moved slowly, reaching out not in fear, but in quiet hope. It was the kind of hope that hurts to feel. The kind that lives inside dreams and prayer. And then his voice. Soft, familiar, like the wind across the fields. He said her name the way only Ty could. Amy. Just that. But it was enough to break her. Asterisk, she fell into him. Not in a dramatic way, but like a wave giving into the shore. Her arms wrapped around him, and for that one moment, it was as if time gave her a gift. As if the universe said, here, just for a little while. Asterisk, we don't know if it was real. Maybe it was a vision. Maybe it was a dream sent by a tired mind looking for peace. But in the world of Heartland, where horses understand pain and silence speaks louder than words, sometimes it doesn't matter if something is real. Sometimes what matters is what it heals. Asterisk, for Amy, seeing Ty again wasn't about magic. It was about meaning. She needed to feel him once more, to remember. Not just the loss, but the love. The way he smiled, the way he made her feel safe. The way his presence reminded her who she used to be before the sorrow took over. Asterisk, in that quiet moment in the barn, just the two of them. It felt like the universe was allowing Amy to say goodbye the right way. Not in panic, not in shock, but with peace, with love, with a full heart. Asterisk, Ty didn't say much. He didn't have to. His presence said everything. The way he looked at her, the way he smiled at Lindy, watching from the distance. That tiny nod he gave to Jack standing at the fence. It was like he was passing through, not to stay. But to remind everyone that he was never truly gone. Asterisk, and when Amy finally let go, tears. Rolling down her face, she whispered something only he could hear. I'm okay now. Asterisk, Ty nodded. That same calm, quiet strength he always had. And then, like a dream breaking at dawn, he was gone. Asterisk, no flash. No fade. Just gone. Asterisk, Amy stood, alone in the barn, breathing heavily, her eyes red. But this time, there was something different. She wasn't empty, she wasn't broken. She had seen him, felt him, and somewhere deep in her heart, she knew he had come back not to stay, but to help her move forward. Asterisk, that's what made it powerful. It wasn't just about missing someone, it was about realizing that love, real love, never leaves us. It changes shape, it becomes memory, it becomes strength. And in the hardest moments, it shows up just when we need it most. Asterisk, it wasn't the vision of Ty that broke Amy. It was what? The kind that wraps around your chest and squeezes until you forget how to breathe. The barn was empty again, but something inside her had changed. She stood there with her hands still trembling, like they were holding on to a ghost. And for the first time in years, she let herself feel everything, not just grief. They all crashed into her like a storm she had spent seasons trying to outrun. Asterisk, Amy had been surviving for so long. For Lindy, for the ranch, for the family. But now, standing in that stillness, she realized she had forgotten what it meant to live. Seeing Ty again, even if just for a moment, opened something inside her that she had sealed shut the day he died. Asterisk, it wasn't just pain she was carrying, it was fear. Fear that moving forward meant forgetting him. Fear that healing meant letting go. And worst of all, fear that if she smiled too long, if she let herself laugh again, would mean she didn't miss him enough. But now she knew better. Love like that doesn't disappear. It doesn't fade when someone's gone. Stays. It grows roots in your soul and becomes part of who you are. Ty wasn't behind her. He was inside her, in every decision she made. In the way she raised Lindy, in the way she stood tall when the world tried to break her the next morning. Amy walked into the barn with a softness that hadn't been there in years. She paused beside Spartan and pressed her forehead gently to his. It was the same gesture she used to do when she was hurting. But this time, it wasn't to ask for strength. It was to say, thank you. Thank you for carrying her through it all later. That day, she watched Lindy ride her pony across the field, laughing, completely free. And that's when Amy truly smiled. Not the polite smile she'd been wearing for the past 5 seasons. A real one, the kind that comes from deep inside. It's from peace. Asterisk, she realized that loving Ty didn't mean she had to stay stuck in the moment he left. It meant carrying him with her as she stepped forward, as a part of her story. As the voice in her heart when she needed courage. As the love that gave her the strength to live again in a quiet scene by the river. Amy pulled out an old photo of her and Ty, edges worn from years of being held too tightly. She didn't cry, she didn't speak. She just closed her eyes and held it to her chest. And in that stillness, it was like the photo breathed with her. Amy wasn't trying to move on anymore. That phrase had never made sense to her. She was choosing to move forward with Ty's love guiding her, with Lindy's laughter lifting her, and with the ranch, the horses, and her family surrounding her like a circle of strength. This was no longer the story of a widow. This was the story of a woman rediscovering her power, of a mother teaching her daughter how to live with loss and still find joy, of a horsewoman finding her way back to the rhythm of her heart. Amy Fleming was no longer just surviving. It didn't happen with a grand speech or a dramatic hug. It happened in the kitchen. That old wooden table, the one scarred with decades of stories. Burned edges and knife marks stood in the middle of it all, like always. Around it, the family. Gathered, Jack, Lou, Lisa, Tim, Katie, Lindy, and Amy. They weren't talking about Ty, but he was there. In the silence between bites. In the soft clink of silverware. In the way no one wanted to be the first to speak. The power of that moment wasn't in what was said, but in what WASN. Single quotes top. Jack looked across the table at Amy. His eyes, worn from years of heartbreak and hard-earned wisdom, softened. He didn't ask questions. He didn't press her to talk. He just nodded. It's the way only Jack can. Like he already knew. Like he felt it too. Because sometimes family doesn't need to hear the story to understand it. Just need to be there when it ends. Amy reached across the table for Lindy's hand. The little girl looked up, smiling wide, unaware of the invisible healing happening in that room. She was the future. The reason Amy had kept going all these years. And in that second, Amy realized something important. I hadn't just given her love. He had given her legacy. This family had been through so much loss, fights, breakups, long roads to forgiveness, but they always came back to the table. That was their ritual. No matter how much had been broken, they knew how to sit down and break bread together. Lisa poured tea without a word, her gold bracelet catching the light. Lou leaned into Katie's shoulder, her own heart carrying quiet scars, and Tim, Well, Tim kept his eyes down. He'd never been good with emotions. But even he couldn't stop his voice from cracking when he whispered, "He'd be proud of you, Amy." Amy didn't respond right away. She looked at her daughter, then at the chair, where Ty used to sit empty yet somehow so full. And then she smiled, not because everything was okay, but because it didn't have to be. Sometimes the strongest families aren't the ones that never fall apart. They're the ones that always find their way back to each other after dinner. The family moved to the porch. The sky was painted in pinks and purples, the kind of Heartland sunset that feels like it was made just for them. Jack brought out his guitar, strumming a quiet tune that carried on the breeze. Lindy danced barefoot in the grass. Katie took photos. Lou laughed for the first time that day, and Amy Amy stood quietly, leaning against the railing, watching. She didn't cry. She didn't need to, because this moment. Right here was the kind of peace she'd been chasing. The kind that doesn't come with answers, but with acceptance. A knowing in your bones that love, once planted, deep enough, keeps growing long after someone's gone. Ty was gone, but his love WASN. It lived in the way Amy held her daughter, in the way Jack played his guitar, in the way this family, after everything, still came together around a meal, around a memory, around each other. Heartland has always been about more than just horses or heartbreak. It's about what happens when people choose love over bitterness, when they show up even when they're broken, when they hold space for each other's silence. That night on the porch, they didn't talk about what Amy had seen. They didn't need to, because the most powerful moments are often the quiet ones, the ones where love shows up not in words, but in presence. And under that wide open sky, surrounded by the people who knew every piece of her story, Amy closed her eyes and breathed in the cool, sweet air. She wasn't alone. She never really had been. Hope doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it slips in like sunlight through old curtains, quiet, soft. It's pain steady. That's how it came to Heartland after years of loss. Healing and silent battles, something had shifted. Not in loud declarations or dramatic turns, but in the small things, the way Amy looked up at the sky instead of down at her feet. The way Lindy now rode with fearless joy. The way Jack laughed a little more. And Lou finally exhaled without realizing she'd been holding her breath. Ty's return, whether real, spiritual, or imagined, was never about rewriting the past. It was about helping Amy let go of the pain, while holding on to the love. That's the difference. Because healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without breaking. As season 19 continues, Amy begins to walk differently. Not because the road is easier, but because she's stronger. Not just for herself, but for Lindy, for the ranch, and for the version of Ty that still lives in her choices, her care, her courage. We see her returning to the work she loves with a new energy. Gentler with the horses, yes, but also bolder, trusting herself again. Her sessions with troubled horses mirror her own growth. She understands their fear. She sees their resistance. But now she also believes in their ability to heal, 'cause she's been there, can come through it. That's legacy. Not what you leave behind when you're gone, but what you grow in the hearts of those you loved. And Ty's legacy lives on, everywhere at Heartland. It's in the way Lindy wants to help animals just like her dad. It's in how Jack teaches with quiet strength. It's the same way he once mentored Ty. It's in every memory that isn't sad anymore, but sacred. Even the land feels different, more peaceful, more alive. One scene later in the season says it. All Amy and Lindy standing on the ridge at sunset. Lindy points up and says, "That cloud looks like Dad." Amy doesn't cry. She smiles and replies, "I see him too." It's a moment that would have shattered her seasons ago, but now it strengthens her because she knows he's part of the view, not just as shadow in the past, but as shape in the light. So what's next? For Amy. It's a life rooted in memory, but reaching toward new skies. It's raising her daughter with joy. It's choosing love again, maybe one day with someone new, not to replace, but to walk beside the memory of Ty. And it's continuing the mission they once shared, helping, healing, and holding on to hope. For Heartland, season 19 isn't just a continuation. It's a resurrection, a soft restart. It's not by changing everything, but by returning to the core of what the show has always been. Love, family, forgiveness, and the quiet power of never giving up. So if you've ever lost someone, if you've ever carried grief in your chest like a stone, if you've ever wondered whether you'd laugh again, his story is for you. Because the story of Heartland reminds us that no goodbye is final. Asterisk, not when love was real, not when hearts remain open, and not when the wind still carries the sound of hoofbeats across that golden Alberta field. Asterisk, Ty may be gone from this world, but he rides with them still. Asterisk, always.